Well, this is it. This is the last award of today's deliberations. We only have one more day, in theory. I'm sure in practice it'll go super smoothly. But yeah, we're going to pick out the best developer of 2020. This is a software developer, a video game developer, one who develops video games, maker of video games. That's what we're awarding here.
I want to start by saying, going into this year, I knew of Mediatonic because I'm just like, they made Hatoful Boyfriend. They made the pigeon dating simulator, which was pretty good. Actually, I liked it.
It was.
But they had a really good year with Fall Guys and just making a battle royale that was fun to play and was not a shooter. Something you can pick up and play with just about anybody of all ages. It makes you smile every time. They're supporting the game throughout the year. And the stuff that they've been adding for season 2 is a lot of fun. So I definitely love the work that they've done on Fall Guys. And Murder by Numbers is one of my favorite Switch games of the year. So I got to give them some recognition for that, for taking another one of those weird concepts from the makers of the pigeon dating simulator. The idea of solving murder mysteries by playing Picross, and it's such a fun idea, and it's on all platforms, but it's so perfect for Switch. Like, I love playing that on my couch. So.
I also got to give props to Mediatonic for leveraging the popularity of Fall Guys.
Yes.
To create a contest for brands to try to win their skin in the game, and also just like the sheer amount of crossovers they've done with different companies to put interesting skins in the game and keep content fresh. Sonic the Hedgehog was a sheer surprise. The Scout from Team Fortress was a fun surprise. They've been kind of going all around the board on their Devolver properties, putting like my friend Pedro, Gato Roboto, all sorts of that stuff in the game, and it's just like, it's interesting every time they come out.
What's really funny about that is, like, it's not like when Fortnite brings out guest characters and you kind of want to roll your eyes a little bit, or you kind of feel like it's pandering. When Fall Guys does it, it kind of feels endearing, and I kind of like that. Yeah,
like, they recognize okay, and this is hugely on their PR guy, Oliver. He understands like the memeability of that game, and they work well off of like the memeing community that they do with that. Like the big Yeetus, the content, the contest was just like a big old meme show of like
everything with Tim the Tatman was a meme. Yeah, like they've done a great job, but like that's all community management and stuff.
But like Mediatonic plays off that and actually develops around how memeable the game is.
It's true.
And that's that's not something that a lot of people can really do or be able to do like on the fly like that though.
I've stated it before in these deliberations. I feel like I'm broken. I don't like this game. I don't know what's wrong with me. On paper, I should love it. I should be playing it all the time.
You like Battle Royale in general, Asif, or no?
It has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with how I feel about Battle Royale at all.
You don't like the platforming element.
It's not that poorly. I love platforming.
No, I mean like this specific platform.
I think that the levels are designed poorly. I don't like the collision detection in the game. I think there is latency in the console version, and it's just.
The whole thing is like piss poor presentation.
The flow is not that fun.
It's not a finished game in my mind. I feel like they released a beta and called it a finished game, but
it felt very unfinished. But there's a few things that they could have done that would have changed my mind entirely. That game with a proper spectate mode, that game with proper private lobbies, it's game changing. Yeah, it would have been like, it would have rocketed up my game of the year list.
That's my problem. How are you gonna have? I'm sorry, man, but like, how are you gonna have a game where you can have 50 people in the freaking game and limit it to like just having a group of 4 people being able to get together?
I mean, it's not unlike how PUBG shipped or something. You know, like it was groups of 4. And I get that. And I liked the element of being able to spectate your friends even if you lost. But it's like there are just a couple of levers they could have pulled that would have won me over, and they didn't. But that doesn't speak ill to anything that TJ mentioned or anything Ozzy's mentioned about them as developers. I think they've done a very good job, and we have to remind ourselves that they are an indie. This is not like a AAA game, and it is going to develop into one. Like, I feel like Ozzy, we talked about Rocket League when you were reviewing this game, because I think with the benefit of 5 years of looking back now, we can look back at Rocket League and be like, that game probably wasn't an 8 out of 10, you know? But Fall Guys, I think 5 years from now, is still going to be around, and it's going to be because of these developers. So
it helps that they're published by Devolver Digital, and really they kind of have that kind of same thought pattern in terms of like channeling memes and that sort of thing, like the stuff that TJ was saying.
Yeah.
Another developer that I wanted to recognize was Insomniac for the work that they've done with Spider-Man this year. Not just Miles Morales, although that was pretty awesome in itself, because Miles Morales is an awesome game. Best PS5 game out there right now, outside of Demon's Souls. But also, the stuff that they've done with Spider-Man Remastered, and you remember when they announced that, and they were just like, people were going, is your PS4 save going to go? And go, no, it's a remaster, and it's for PS5. Well, why would your save be able to carry over? That doesn't make a lot of sense. But then there was enough outcry about it that Insomniac took a step back, and they're just like, why can't we carry the saves over? Let's make this happen. So they got to work. They made it happen. Now you can take your PS4 Spider-Man save to the new remaster, and that's pretty cool. They didn't have to do that. Yeah. That they went the extra mile and did that speaks really highly of them. It's a really cool little thing about them. I love Insomniac. Full of great people, great developers, and want to recognize them as well.
Yeah, and they got acquired by Sony last year, right?
Yes.
They weren't going to do that at first, nor were they going to make the jump from PS4 to PS5 on Spider-Man 2018 free, right?
I think the jump comes with the collector's edition of Miles Morales.
And you have to pay $20 extra.
Yeah, you have to pay for it. I don't know.
It's the Ultimate Edition of Miles Morales. You get that.
But if you buy the vanilla, there's an option in the main menu. You press a button and it's $20.
Yeah, I don't know. Most other developers are offering free next-gen upgrades, right? Mortal Kombat.
Dead by Daylight, a lot of the older games are.
Though.
It's a case by case thing, David. It doesn't seem like there's any consistency when it comes to if a game costs money or not at next gen.
That's actually why I've been buying a lot of stuff on Xbox, just because with Xbox I know I'm getting the update on Series X.
I'll say this: Xbox has nailed backwards compatibility. They've absolutely nailed it. I just wish they had more games, but.
But the fact that you can look at any Xbox game released in the last 3 months, and on the top left corner of the box it says Xbox One, Xbox Series X. Right there. So easy.
Yep. And Series X can play Gears 3.
But yeah, that was the argument I wanted to make for Insomniac, and I think that's all I have. I wanted to initially recognize Don't Nod for Tell Me Why and also for Twin Mirror, but the more I'm playing a Twin Mirror, it's not scratching the itch for me so far. So
but you liked Tell Me Why quite a bit, right?
I did like Tell Me Why quite a bit as a story and as a narrative game, but I don't think that's enough to necessarily put it as best developer.
Yeah,
Twin Mirror was really good too. From Don't Nod.
It's not speaking to me just yet, but I'm sure I'm going to hit that point, Donovan. Hopefully.
Okay.
To David's point, it's a lot of the games of services that are giving you the free updates, and there are some single-player games doing it too, but most single-player games want like a separate version or a $20 upgrade or whatever that is from what I've been seeing.
Or in the case of NBA 2K, just $70 more.
Yeah, fuck you, NBA 2K. But yeah, that's usually the case is what I've seen, David. Stuff like that.
It's anecdotal. I've seen otherwise, but
yeah,
sure.
Everywhere.
No, that's what I said. It's case by case.
I'm agreeing with you, Asif. Not
there's no real path right now, and I feel like this is a very weird year for a lot of devs because they're straddling multiple generations and PC.
Yeah, it's
so. Valve brought Half-Life back.
There you go.
Yeah, they did.
That's my argument. That's it.
All right.
Really what he needs.
Third Half-Life game.
Are we ready to vote then?
No.
Let me tell you
Yes.
why I'm not voting for Half-Life and Valve in this competition.
I'm very interested here.
They did a okay. Take this with a grain of salt, but they did it for themselves. Valve did it for themselves, and you know what? Nothing wrong with that. Make a game for yourself and all that jazz. It's good practice. They took everybody yelling at them, make us a new Half-Life game, and they said we're gonna do it our own way. And then Gabe Newell went over to New Zealand, shot a lawn gnome into space, and cut a check.
I'm gonna tell you about
in a country that doesn't have COVID anymore.
Apple One computer created out of necessity of the two people who created it. Google, created by two people who just did it for themselves. You know, the search engine. YouTube, created by people who just wanted that thing.
Yeah, dude, that's how creating things
like
works.
Necessity, and like I don't know. I think
it's a necessity.
Especially in an industry that's driven by capitalism. Every single one of these developers did this for themselves.
You know it's a necessity in the industry where it's a huge problem right now? Good practices in the workplace. Mm-hmm. You know who does that and has done that since the very beginning and also shipped a bomb-ass game this year? Mm-hmm. Supergiant Games.
That's true.
Hades is by far one of the best games of the year. It is one of the best games of the year in a line of great games where Supergiant just continues to like push outside of their comfort zone and do things they haven't done before, creating an entire experience of gameplay, music, and mechanics and story all together in one place. And against all odds, they do it not only not doing developer crunch, but actually demanding that their employees take vacations and forcing them not to do crunch. Mm-hmm. That in of itself, like the fact that Supergiant Games can continue to put out banger after banger after banger and put a game into this year that may not be as technically like incredible as every other game that's in our considerations, but put out a banger game like Hades and continue to push a workplace practice that's like, yes, it can be sustainable, you just have to want to do it, is worth so much to me as far as like what's necessary and needed in the industry right now.
None of these bonuses that you're claiming for Supergiant are absent at Valve. You don't have any evidence that Valve treats their devs poorly. In fact, it took them how many years to make a Half-Life? They clearly weren't crunching.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, I never said that Valve was crunching.
But
Half-Life 2 was famous for insane crunch after it got stole and they had to fix it in the last year.
Wait, which game?
Half-Life 2. Not that that's recent, but
that's 16 years ago. I'm just saying, like, we're talking about Half-Life Alyx here, and I just feel like a lot of what TJ just mentioned doesn't apply there. Like, there's other games, but that totally applies. The Last of Us 2 definitely applies. Cyberpunk 2077, that applies. But I don't think we've heard a single word about Valve being tough on their devs this year. If anything, the Valve in 2020 sounds like a pretty cool place to work.
No, I agree. Like, if anything, the coverage we did on like the documentary stuff seems like they're going about that the right way. Everybody kind of took that at their leisure, recorded from their home.
It just seemed like that was your segue into Supergiant. And
yeah, that's why
I didn't understand that connection at all.
Yeah, there's other games I think would have been a better foil. Is all my point is.
Yeah.
I think Gabe Newell could have checked better to somebody else for shooting a gnome into space than the country that has no COVID anymore, but that's a different thing.
Look, Gabe's still in New Zealand. What do you want from him? I don't blame him. I wouldn't come back either. Let's move on. We're gonna get back to Half-Life. I'll make a case at the end of this, David, but
that's fine.
Josh, I saw you had a couple of nominations you wanted to get in here.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess the most obvious one, would be In Exile.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge fan of the Wasteland series, but I think the story as a whole of how In Exile has kind of made a comeback with the Wasteland series is huge. And like, they could have stopped at Wasteland 2, but they didn't. They brought us Wasteland 3, and instead of just copying their success with Wasteland 2, they made it bigger and better. And to put that much work into a game that you literally think out all of these different paths that players can take, and you give players this level of freedom in your world that you've created is very trusting of the community that you have, and also just amazing from a player standpoint. We had a sit down with Brian Fargo a couple of months ago at this point. He's just a really down to earth, like chill guy, like just talking to him about the development process that they went through. They literally just told their developers, bring us whatever you can think of, you know? Like, if it's too far, then it's too far. Like, we'll push it back or whatever, you know, we'll find the line. But, like, bring us your wildest dreams. Like, let's make something great without any, like, big restrictions on them. Like, they let the developers make the game that they wanted to make, you know? Like, with all of the features and the parts that they wanted to make. And I think that that's something that's really worth praising.
Yeah. To elaborate on Josh, but to elaborate with Josh, that like to be able to do the things that they wanted to do, and like there are some pretty like borderline jokes in that game that I was amazed they got in there. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of cool that a developer took those risks. Like they could have gotten, you know, flack for that. You know what I mean? But they put it in anyway because they thought it worked and it was funny, and they left it in.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. And then you also had another nomination, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, so this is kind of, I don't know if I'd call this a serious nomination, because I just don't think that it's...
You don't think Chicken Police is going to take this category?
I don't think it's going to take this category, no, but I think it's worth praising the guys at the Wild Gentleman. Mm-hmm. We had an interview with them in 2019, and we kind of learned, like, the origin of this game. And it's out now. It released in November. Mm-hmm. And it's a very, like, narrative, like, reading-driven game. Like, you're going to be reading or listening to a lot. But the fact that the idea for this entire game came from the developer, like, stumbling across a random YouTube video of a chicken running into a fight between two rabbits, and, like, this idea spawned, and that they went to the risk of making a game based off of this. Like, that, I think, speaks to, like, the love that developers have for the creations that they make, for the things that they make. Like, that speaks to the passion that some developers can have when it comes to making video games and bringing people these stories. Like, this is something you would never really think of. I wouldn't have watched that video and thought, damn, this would make a cool game. You know, like, it's a funny video, but to see that and to think of a game and to come up with a story that you can tell that pulls players in, I think is worth at least an honorable mention here.
For sure. I'm gonna have to play it. That art style appeals to me.
Yeah, it's really nice.
I'm gonna nominate Sucker Punch just because I think Ghost of Tsushima is a good game, and I think they don't get a lot of recognition for the gameplay mechanics that they have kind of refined over the years with Infamous Second Son. You know,
not only that, they went through a lot of painstaking effort to be as historically accurate as possible with a lot of what they did. And
yeah, for like a Western dev to make a game about Asian culture and to do as good of a job as they did, it's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah,
and also be like, at least, I don't know if it's historically accurate, but like kind of parallels history, I guess.
Well, Famitsu said that, like, they really nailed it with a lot of this stuff. Like, they really appreciated how on the ball it was
for like cultural representation.
Yeah,
for sure,
exactly. Yeah, so I think that's definitely worth noting. Like, a game made by a bunch of Westerners about Japan that Japan actually liked, which, as far as video games is concerned, like, that's a that's like a huge deal. You know,
It doesn't
it's not
happen very
easy.
often.
Yeah, like the Japanese market is usually not too interested in Western games or consoles or anything like that. So, you know, yeah, it's a big W there.
Yeah, it was really funny last year at Tokyo Game Show when we would walk by the Cyberpunk 2077 booth and it was like empty.
Nobody there.
Because they're just like, what's this crap? And they're all like lining up for some Final Fantasy mobile game booth.
Right? Yeah, like no, the only time I saw people over there was when like the models would come out.
Yeah, sure.
People would go take photos.
They were taking photos, yeah. But it was shocking because like you think about Cyberpunk on the show floor of any US event, right? And it's gonna be the thing, right? Like it speaks to what you're talking about. And I remember how hard I think Rockstar was promoting Red Dead Redemption 2 really hard at TGS. They didn't have a booth, but when you walked out, they were handing you fans that said RDR2 on them. They had stickers. Like, they had a street team that was super present there because, these Western games normally don't resonate with them. So for Sucker Punch to make a game over here about Japan and to get it right to the extent where it actually resonated with them was just really impressive. I wanted to at least nominate them for this category before I just said, Valve made a game in 2020.
Are you talking about that collectible card game?
No,
thing?
I'm not talking about Artifact. I'm
That
talking
game's
about
great. Let's talk about Artifact.
Half-Life Alyx. Half-Life Alyx exists, and it's really fucking good. And it's like pushing the boundaries for what you can do in a video game. So yes, that's the developer of the year. Thank you very much. Now, I guess we should vote. No, I'm done. I could keep talking about Half-Life Alyx, but it seems like it's falling on deaf ears the more and more I do it. So I'm saving some more for next week. But yeah, I think this game, when we look back at 2020, it's going to be... We're going to think about Animal Crossing. Right? We're going to think about the launch in the next-gen consoles. Maybe we'll think about Fall Guys. Maybe we'll think about Hades. But for me, I'm going to be like, that's the year Valve actually made a game in the Half-Life universe. And it was good. It was great.
For me, it's not even just that they made a game. I look at it as there's going to be people that get into VR in the next 2 or 3 years because it is going to become more popular and more accessible. And they're going to see games that only exist and were inspired by Half-Life Alyx. And they're not even going to know. They're not even going to know why these mechanics exist in VR today, or, well, in the future, obviously. So for me, I agree. I was really kind of gung-ho about Supergiant, but I think if you're talking developer of the year, you're talking about someone that actually did something that's going to have an impact, not just on wow, you made something cool, but you made something that's going to change that platform, that experience for people, and that to me is a pretty big deal. That's not just you made a great game, you literally changed the game.
And they've I feel like they've pushed forward VR on the tech side for years, with all the work they did with the Lightroom tech and tracking, all the R&D they put into the stuff that powers HTC Vive and now the Index. All this tech, even the Source engine, Source 2, all this tech was just floating out there. It needed someone to be like, this is what you can do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Half-Life Alyx is. It's the first time, in a while, that we really have, oh shit moments. There's oh, couldn't do this before, we can now. Or no one ever did this before, they are now. That's where I think Valve separated themselves this year as a developer.
This might be a loose comparison, but I mean, it is, in my mind, it reminds me of think about how, cell phones and mobile phones change because of the iPhone. And this is obviously a prediction, but this is kind of like why I think that Valve deserves it. Not just because Half-Life Alyx is good or that they made a game, but they made something that might have a massive ripple effect on the industry for years to come, because they made something that no one else has made and that people weren't even thinking about making. Or if they were, they just weren't successful in doing it. So they've just literally opened a door that other people are going to walk through, and it's going to change the kind of games and the quality of games that we get in VR.
I think like all games are packages of emphasis, right? And I think VR is still kind of the Wild West when it comes to best practices. Valve took all of the best practices that they've already seen in other games that they liked, and then they added to them. And that's like, they showed this, that there is a way to make a VR game that's single player, that's a longer experience, that's good. And I know like we've had Asgard's Wrath and like a couple other single player VR experiences, Wilson's Heart, nothing even close to this level of detail. And being there, what sucks about this year is that no one could come to the office. If I could have just thrown all of you in the Valve Index and shown you the world, I feel like I would have a better chance at explaining how magical of an experience this game is. Because I haven't felt, no game has made me feel like Half-Life Alyx did this year. No, I never, even at my most intense moments in Hades, I was never like, wow, this is like unbelievable. I was just like, this is really good. You know what I mean? Like, it's excellent. It is fun. And the gameplay loop is awesome.
What you're seeing right now, Asif, is the same thing. I'm watching in real time as Trevor's experiencing Half-Life Alyx with the Quest 2 with PC Link, and he just can't stop talking about it every day.
No.
So he's really...
Yeah, it's like unbelievable what they've accomplished. And I think that they deserve this award. They deserve other awards. Because they're not going to... It's not going to be a Half-Life game next year, or the year after, or the year after, or the year after. Like, this is such a rare occasion that we get a treat like this, that we shouldn't squander it. And I think because of the best practices of Supergiant that TJ highlighted, I guarantee they're going to be around for more awesome stuff.
Right, and like, one of the things, I'm not disagreeing with you on any of that. Like, for me personally, for everything that's been brought up, and actually like for the more that I look at it, like it's kind of two sides of the same coin. I think to say that Supergiant just made a good game is dismissive of what they did with Hades.
No, I said excellent.
Because I feel like Hades, it did something for roguelike games that we haven't seen too much of before, and that's give it a compelling narrative that continues to move forward no matter how much you lose. And that makes that keeps players that wouldn't normally play this type of game locked in, because they want to see what happens next, and they can continue to see what happens next without necessarily succeeding at it. I think that's important. Mm-hmm. I think that's super important for that genre, because the roguelike genre can be extremely unforgiving, and it can be extremely deflating when you lose and you just have to go right back to the start. But I agree with you that, like, for what Valve has done for VR, that is super important to the VR space, and the way that they implemented that technology and the way they handled that technology. And like you said, like Supergiant, they did it without making their employees suffer to make it happen.
Yeah,
and I will say that like Half-Life Alyx will be the only reason I buy a VR headset. Just from what I've heard about us talking about it.
Exactly the same with me. I could have bought a VR headset a year ago, and I kept telling people, like, there's nothing that draws me in. Like, I get it, it's cool, but it's a gimmick for me. Like, it's not there. It's gimmicky. It always felt gimmicky. And like, we were talking about Half-Life Alyx and Deliberations last week. I was shopping for VR headsets because I was like, oh, damn, now's the time. This is the first time I felt like now is the time for me to get in. So
I feel like VR had its Tetris moment with Beat Saber, and that was the first shot across the bow for people, where it was like, here's a thing, here's a perfect reason to get this thing. But it wasn't meaty. It wasn't, it's a pick up and play and then you're on your way kind of game. This is like VR's Legend of Zelda.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, this is the first game that you could really sink your teeth into. But
I would say Resident Evil 7, but it was only it was exclusive to one platform, and arguably the one that just doesn't have the horsepower to like really make it pop.
Yeah, no, not even.
RE7 VR got great reviews, dude.
That's fine. It doesn't hold a candle to Half-Life Alyx. Half-Life Alyx, to TJ's point, yes, it's doing things that are in service of VR, but there are things that any developer can learn from the details in Half-Life Alyx that they could bring into a level design in a traditional flat screen game that are about exposition, are about environmental storytelling that goes beyond VR. Sure, being immersed in VR and being in that world makes it more expressive, but what they've done there could have been done in other games. It just wasn't, because no one pays that level of attention to detail. That's why Half-Life Alyx stands above everything else for me this year. Is there is an insane level of detail to every hallway in that game. In everything that you can. If you want to put a hard hat on, you can. And then guess what? If you walk underneath an enemy that tries to eat you, it eats your hat first. It's like little things like that. So many little things that came together, and like I said, they didn't invent any of this. They packaged it together in a way that's so damn good that, like, it's just rare. We don't get games from them very often. So when we do, we should appreciate them. We should look at this and be like, wow. And it's actually two devs in one. You got the storytelling from the Firewatch devs, and you have that amazing gameplay from the devs who made The Lab, which was one of my favorite VR experiences. So I really think it's that's about everything I can say about this game. But I think that when you look back 10 years from now on the year 2020, there's only going to be a couple games you think about and a couple developers you think about. And I agree that maybe Supergiant's on that list. Maybe Nintendo for making Animal Crossing is on that list. Maybe Sucker Punch is on that list. But Valve is definitely going to be remembered for this year, because they actually made a video game. And it was good. Yeah. It was good. It wasn't Artifact.
No.
Voting time?
Thank God.
I think it is voting time. Donovan had to head out.
Voting time.
He voted for Valve.
Asif, I'm voting for Valve, with the caveat that I know that Supergiant is going to be back in 3 years with a game that we've never seen them make before.
Mm-hmm.
And also on the caveat that if Valve makes 13 more years to make another fucking game, I'm never voting for them again.
Good news is you won't have to vote for them again if they don't make another game.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where it's unlikely we're going to see a Valve game for a very long time. I'm not holding my breath. I would love to see more Half-Life. I would love to see more Half-Life. I want to see more of what they just did. But
yeah,
if you look at it from a financial standpoint, there's probably no motivation to make another Half-Life VR game. It's not moving the needle. And that's another thing I respect about them. They didn't need to do this. This wasn't profit driven. There's like an artistic element to the release of Half-Life Alyx that I think people sleep on.
Yeah, but it's also a perfect storm, because about the level of detail, Valve has kind of always done that, and it's great to see that represented. I would also argue that for other companies, that level of detail was too risky an investment because the install base wasn't there. So this is almost the sort of game you needed, that combination of capital and artistry.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I think there's not a whole lot of companies where that resides.
Yeah, like, and I don't blame them, because up until now, VR has been, unless it's PSVR, it's been a risky investment. So
I think Oculus Quest 2 is starting to move some units, so maybe there will be another platform that we can look to that's got an addressable market. But you can go back and find videos of me talking about VR from 2014, and I said the global addressable market was probably 5 million units. That's just not enough to drive $100 million of software development. So that's the problem VR has. I definitely don't claim that Valve has not solved any of those problems. All Valve has shown us is this is how to make a single player VR experience.
Well, I think they solved their half of the equation. The other half is accessibility, and the cheaper headsets is the other half, and that's coming
But the fact that you can play Half-Life Alyx on a Facebook-owned Oculus Quest speaks to how awesome Valve is.
Yeah, well, that's what they've always kind of done. I would say since Half-Life 1.
You know who wouldn't do that? Nintendo. Nintendo's not going to let you run shit on anything other than a Nintendo device, unless it's a really crappy Mario Kart mobile game. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of IP holders would be a little more protective, I think. Valve sees the situation they're in, and they know that being platform agnostic is important to VR success. And I think it's cool to see that. They could have made it, if they really wanted to, they could have made it a Valve Index exclusive.
Yeah, they wanted to sell some.
If they wanted to be dicks about it, and they didn't. And I appreciate them for that.
I'll vote Valve.
David's on Team Valve. Donovan's on Team Valve. Greg.
I mean, a lot of people made really good points, but Valve made a game that was not a fucking card game. So yeah, and I'm watching Trevor enjoy it, so Valve.
Valve, thank you, Trevor. Steve.
Valve. Valve for me.
Valve. Blake.
I guess you know what, Valve, I'll give it to Valve. I guess people like that Half-Life series, supposedly. That's the rumors. Around town.
All 12 of us. Sam, if you say 343, I'm gonna smack you.
I don't know if you can get over to Australia, but yeah, throw me down for Valve.
Chris.
Asif, that wig may look like a spider, but there are bigger spiders over.
I know. I don't want to.
Sam was actually voting for Valve based on the work they did helping Saber integrate Steamworks into the Master Chief Collection.
Okay, good answer. Chris, are you voting for Valve?
I guess it doesn't matter who I vote for at this point. Anyway, I believe it's a Valve sweep.
Do you want to vote for someone else?
No, I think Valve will be okay.
Okay. It's about what you want. Bill.
CD Prod. Valve.
Get the fuck out of here.
Out of order. Definitely Valve.
The C stands for crunch.
The D stands for dong. Josh.
Sorry,
Josh.
I was responding to a message. I appreciate what Valve did for VR, but I have to die on my hill. I think what In Exile did for strategy RPGs is equally as important, so I'm gonna stick with In Exile.
Okay, well, we got one vote for In Exile, one vote for Mediatonic. Ozzy, right?
Nah, as much as Mediatonic is redefining it's making me rethink the way we think of battle royales, and as much as Supergiant makes me want to play more roguelikes, a genre that I typically hate, there are so few times when we can vote for somebody that defines the way you play a game. And I think Valve did that with Half-Life, so I'm going to vote for Valve.
Sweet. So it's almost a Valve sweep. Josh voted for In Exile. Everyone else voted for Valve. That's 11 votes, Gaben, if you're out there watching. I hope you notice.
All the votes for you and your crowd,
gave
man.
you these awards, Gabe, so thank you so much for letting your team make a video game that isn't hat-based. Although you can put hats on in Half-Life Alyx. Anyway, our best developer of 2020 is Valve Software. Fuck yes! Fuck yes!
Yes! Yes! Oh, yeah! Can you feel that, buddy? Huh? 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 I have exorcised the demons. This house is clear.